Pittsburgh to gay pride in San Francisco. Our next guest has had quite a journey and along the way helped a lot of good causes raise money and attention. Gary, Virginia, welcome to 10%.
Thank you.
Well, I just found out in the green room that you and I got to town the same time.
About 1987.
Yeah. So what led a nice boy from Pittsburgh to come out west?
Well, I was fortunate. I was working at a job at the University of Charleston in West Virginia in development, and I went to a conference in Boston, and I met some really nice people from San Francisco State University, and they said they had an opening for an assistant director of development. So I applied, and the heavens opened, and I landed in San Francisco from Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah, it sounds like an Armistead Maupin tale or chapter or something.
Yes, and I decided that I didn't want to keep moving from city to city to make new friends with my career. So once I landed here, I just thought, whatever I need to do, I'm going to stay in one city, and I've been here since 1987.
Now, you have become known for a lot of your charity work, helping good causes raise money. Is that a consequence of being a member of the gay community, or is that because, well, you were trained in development, or how did the two kind of meld?
Well, I had an odd experience of a kidney stone attack in 1988 and found out I was HIV positive, which I did not know. So I monitored my health, and then I had full-blown AIDS in 1995, and I worked at that time as a gallery director and worked for a year being very sick on medication, and then my doctor said, you need to go on disability, so I did. And after 3 months of getting my life put back together through the help of the AIDS Emergency Fund and Positive Resource Center, I was ready to climb the walls with something to do because the drugs I started taking were making me feel better. So it was just natural to want to help the two agencies that helped me transition from working since I was 12 going on to disability.
And what year was that?
1996.
Right, I mean, very different. I mean, that was right when the cocktail was coming about, or before, correct?
Protease inhibitors were just coming out around 1996.
Yeah. So when you got your AIDS diagnosis, did you think you were going to die?
I've probably lost 400 or 500 friends to the disease, and it's one of those situations where you partly have to stay in denial to survive. But I was lucky to be involved in a ministry called Radiant Light Ministries that was a LGBT metaphysical ministry. And through that ministry, I had met some pioneers in self-healing, George Melton being one of them, who wrote the book Beyond AIDS. And he and his partner, Will Garcia, traveled in a Winnebago from New York to 55 cities at the height of the AIDS epidemic, teaching people how to combine Eastern and Western thought to heal themselves. And they were on the Phil Donahue show and authored a book, and they were speaking at my ministry, and I was inspired by them and some other local healing people. And I just told myself that through every disease there are people who survive, and I will do everything I can, even if I need to be the first person to survive AIDS. I'm open and willing to be that person. And I just stayed open to everything I knew to do to heal my mind, heal my spirit, heal my body. And fortunately, those things worked, and medicines came about, and I'm still here today.
Yeah, I remember what the Castro was like in 1986 and 87, and it was very different. It was a dark, sad place. I remember finding my first apartment. It was easy because there were all these people that were dying or going into hospice, and it was a very different time. But yet also, and since we moved here in the same year, I'd be curious if you had this feeling. I've talked to people, and sometimes I feel it myself, this longing for the sense of community that was there. I mean, there was a sense, the Castro really was a welcoming neighborhood in the midst of all that sadness. Do you feel that some of that's been lost?
I think, honestly, it was such a transition from West Virginia to San Francisco and working for a public university as opposed to the 3 private universities that were small, whom I worked for. It was such a transition. I think I was just consumed with adjusting to the city and adjusting to my job. And I only knew maybe 2 or 3 people here before I got here. So I wasn't even that aware of the HIV epidemic because I didn't know anybody. I mean, I would see people that looked like they might be ill or hear stories, but I wasn't personally touched that much yet because my connections and friends back east were not that affected at that point. And I didn't know people here who might be sick and dying. So it was an unusual adjustment for me. But I just know that once my closest friends who I made started getting sick and dying through my ministry or through the neighborhood living in the Castro, that I really think that I've blocked that part of my mind, to be honest with you.
It's survivor's guilt in a sense sometimes.
Well, I just stayed busy. I just thought, you help the people closest to you, and if you can raise money or awareness, do what you can. And I think everybody was just on alert, and you just did what you did each day.
Right. Well, you certainly started connecting with the community. I mean, you've done dozens of fundraisers. You've certainly branded a couple. The one that comes to mind is the annual Pride Brunch that you co-chair with your friend Donna Sachet. This year was the 15th anniversary. Tell me how that got started. I mean, that has become, as they like to say, a fixture on the calendar.
Well, thanks.
I mean, did you ever think there'd be gay and straight politicians rushing to get to something just to show that they were next to a gay person? I mean, come on.
I know. Well, I never thought I'd be rubbing elbows with the mayor of the city. I mean, I wasn't involved in that level of work in Pittsburgh, where I grew up. So I think Donna and our relationship started, she was the 30th Empress of the Imperial Council, her fundraising title, and I oddly got elected to be Mr. San Francisco Leather from the leather community. And we kept seeing each other at all these events because our title years overlapped, and we've become really good friends. And once I was on the board of directors of Positive Resource Center, I knew of her skills and celebrity, so I recruited her to the board of Positive Resource Center. So I was on for 6 years. I think she was on for 3.5. And during that time, we were both heavily focused on the fundraising committee. And my background in development had taught me that it's good to have an annual gala as a way to pull all of your staff, board, volunteers, donors. So we helped create an annual gala. And then we also knew that the funding need was so great that we needed to do something additional. So we created the Pride Brunch. And it started out because a chef, Rusty Gaspar, was a chef at Star's Restaurant, which was one of the top celebrity restaurants in the Civic Center area. And we just decided that he offered Star's Restaurant, he knew Jeremiah Tower, and off we went, and the mayor showed up, and people showed up, and we made maybe less than $1,500 that first year, and now we've had our 15th annual brunch, and it raised $42,000 net, and it's now featuring the Grand Marshals of the Pride Parade. It was not that in the beginning. But we kind of thought, here's an opportunity on a Saturday morning of Pride weekend for the
Because we don't have enough to do on Pride
There's
weekend.
not enough. And you don't get to meet the Grand Marshals up close and personal. And at this brunch, you do.
I know, I get to meet Tabitha. I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we've had Sir Ian McKellen and all kinds of, Cloris Leachman. That was a story. And lots of celebrities have come through, but just generally great individual people.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard the duo of Gary Virginia and Donna Shea once called Leather and Lace.
Probably, amongst other things.
Yeah. So why did you say it was strange that the leather community would select you as Mr. Leather? Was that not your community before?
It's nothing I ever had as a goal, put it that way. I was drinking at Daddy's Bar on Castro Street, which is now called 440 Castro. And I was recently on disability and looking for things to do. And my friends said they're having their first leather contest. It was a new bar in 1996.
That was the first one?
Yeah, their very first one for Daddy's Bar. And they said, the people that are entering aren't the regular customers. We need a regular customer who knows the bar to run. And after a few shots of tequila and some beer, they talked me into filling out the form. The next thing I know, I was on stage competing with 6 really great guys. And I was shocked that I was the winner, and even more shocked to know that I had to go compete for the city title. And then, I had some great coaches. My buddy Don Hosea is a local Chinese bus driver friend of mine who's in the leather community, and our friend Omar Mosley was a leather title holder. He's since passed. But they coached me and helped me learn the history of the leather community, how to dress for the leather community.
That's kind of like a leather miscongeniality.
It was. And there we went, and I won. And then I got carted off to Chicago to compete with 51 other gentlemen from around the world for International Mr. Leather. So in the span of 90 days, I went from being a rather vanilla local guy to placing 6th in the world for International Mr. Leather.
Wow. I mean, some people are born to leadership and others put on a harness. I mean, holy Toledo.
It was a great ride. We came back and raised a ton of money. The community at that time really was connected. We had leather title holders and Imperial Council title holders from Alameda, San Jose, and we all went to everybody's events around 96, 97, 98. It was a kind of golden time for the community working together. And it was also exciting because people were surviving AIDS. So we worked even harder to make sure that there was a support network through the agencies for individual people.
What does it do to you when you see someone now or hear someone now who is the age now that you were in 87 when you moved here? Talk about AIDS as if it's over or it's not serious, or, I mean, what does that do to you? I mean, you know, I remember just learning about safe sex and, you know, learning about being positive or negative or dealing with the difference, and it was something we all talked about. And now there's a generation of young men, I'm talking about specifically, that they're doing unsafe things and stupid things and treat us like we're crazy.
It is an unusual phenomenon. I remember my friend, Daddy Alan Selby, and he was on the board of the AIDS Emergency Fund and considered the mayor of Folsom Street. He had the original Mr. S. Leather Shop, and he devoted his life to helping the community raise money and awareness, and always taught safe sex to everybody, men, women, straight, gay. And I know in his final years, he was very distraught that people weren't taking precautions. And I think a lot of it is just the reality of life. If you don't see in front of you people dying or people who appear to be sick, and I think a lot of us who are long-term survivors like myself, hopefully the medications have become easier to take because there's not so many of them. I remember at one point I was taking 24 pills a day, and 3 of them were with food and 2 of them were with not food, and I don't eat on a regular schedule anyhow, so it was very hard. And if you don't take them properly at that time, you could develop resistance to a particular drug. And now I think people think it's kind of a 1 pill a day, which it's almost come down to in some ways. If your HIV viral strain is unexposed to drugs, it could be that one drug has 3 drugs in it that you can take. So I think people see it as an easier to manage illness, and because they didn't see the harshest side of it with people with Kaposi sarcoma lesions or in wheelchairs, or dealing with,
like we did when we first came to town.
For sure, and people with wasting syndrome, literally walking down the street weighing 95 pounds. I have a friend, Omar Kubian, who was a nurse at Kaiser, and he said at the beginning of the epidemic, before they knew what it was called or understood it, there were even medical practitioners who would not work with HIV patients because they thought it was contagious. And he said he would have friends walking down Castro Street one week, and 2 weeks later they were coming through the emergency room, and within 2 to 4 weeks they would be dead. And he said it was a very sad time because a lot of their family and friends were so scared that they weren't really there for them in their final month of life. And you see now where it's rare that you see an obituary in our LGBT newspapers of somebody dying.
As opposed to during the 90s, the
AIDS.
height when there was one day that double truck ad of nothing but obituaries.
Right, and even now you'll see an obituary once in a while that says so-and-so died of complications from HIV/AIDS, but you know, for all these years of the disease, there's still a taboo and discrimination about it, and I think even when people pass from HIV/AIDS, there's still a stigma about it, which is sad. I mean, it's a disease like anything else. So I just think it's more of the younger generation's always going to be more naive and carefree. And for those of us who have been through it, right, the onus is on us, for those who are the soldiers who have been through it, to keep a relationship with the younger community and even our own age people to encourage safe sex.
Right. In our last few moments, I want to talk to you about your latest endeavor, and it must be just because you didn't want anything hard to do, becoming the president of the San Francisco Pride Board, which I'm sure just must be a laugh a minute.
I'm having a ball. Cannonballs being thrown at me. It's wonderful. The SF Pride Parade and Celebration is going to have its 44th celebration come the end of June next year, and everybody is so excited about it. The membership chose the theme, Color Our World with Pride, and I think that they chose it because of what's happening in all these different countries with really harsh laws and practice of discrimination and hate and abuse and torture and killing. It's not only in Russia, it's happening in Uganda, it's happening in the Middle East, it happens in Jamaica, and unfortunately it still happens in America, in the Bay Area. So I think they chose a broad theme to say, you know, we're going to focus on the world, the LGBT community at large, and how we can all support each other in this coming year.
Well, thanks for your leadership. Nice to learn some more about you. Thank you. We've been speaking with Gary Virginia, and in our next half, we're going to ask him about his time with the Mardi Gras Club and about the ever-changing face of Castro. We'll be right back. And we're back with San Francisco's ubiquitous LGBT fundraiser, Gary Virginia. How's that?
Thank you.
And now, my next trick. Yeah.
Right. Pull off Pride.
Exactly. Well, and I will come back to Pride, but I want to talk about something that is fairly new for you. Well, I mean, 10 years. But a new type of fundraiser in San Francisco, Crew to Kink. Talk about that.
Right. It's LGBT and Allies Mardi Gras Club. It's very informal, grassroots, and all we do is raise money for charity in the spirit of Mardi Gras. So we started it about 10 years ago, and we have members who are originally from New Orleans, like my friend Empress Sabine and Emperor John Weber, and we kind of use the traditions of Mardi Gras, having an annual masked ball, but we have it with a West Coast twist. We're kind of like a Western decadence party. So every spring we follow tradition and have a masked ball for charity. And over the 10 years, we've kind of focused on emergency funding. So we kind of scope the San Francisco area and see who's most in need. And this past year, we raised about $5,000 for the Transgender Law Center. And in past years, one year, the computer equipment was stolen from St. James Infirmary, which does outreach and support for sex workers in the city. So knowing that they needed money for computers, we had them as a beneficiary. But it's ranged from the Breast Cancer Emergency Fund, Positive Resource Center, Magnet, the Gay Men's Health Center in the Castro. And right now we do a monthly party called the Full Moon Contest at the Edge Bar in the Castro.
I think I know where this is going, so come on.
I'm not going to give any details. You have to come there every first Wednesday of the month.
Full moon.
Where any butt can enter, and some blankety blank's going to win $100 cash. That's our slogan. And it's a riotous, fun party every first Wednesday at the Edge.
Now, when you say emergency funding, you mean an instant need. So this is not an organization that you're contributing to its annual fund. This is like something like the computers got stolen or there's an instant need. But it's not just LGBT. I understand that you also, at one point in the early years of Crew to Kink, did a fundraiser for Katrina.
Correct. Some of our members had planned on going to the annual Southern Decadence Party, which is
a famous LGBT party in New Orleans.
It's like the gay Mardi Gras of New Orleans. And as the time approached, we saw the Hurricane Katrina was approaching, and at the last minute they shut down the city, so nobody was allowed to go. I mean, my friends and I even thought of going just to help, knowing there was no party. But it was so well covered by the media, watching residents on the rooftops waving sheets with the waters rising to their attics saying, please help us, please save us. And the government really did a poor job in dealing with the emergency services. And we stayed here in the city and decided to have a fundraiser for Katrina. So 5 days after the levees broke, we had held a 8-hour fundraiser at the Edge in the Castro with the help of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And the night before, I sent out an email saying our goal is 10,000, and people were kind of offended. Like, where are we going to raise that much money in a bar beer bust fundraiser? But in my mind, I thought the need is so great, we have to set a high goal.
Which is an important part of fundraising. Say what you're going for.
That's right. So the sisters were out on the streets with their buckets, and people were rolling down their car windows to throw money in there, 5s, 10s, and 20s. We covered all the windows of the bar with the newspaper pictures of people in desperation. And we were about 4 hours, 5 hours into the party, and we were upstairs in the attic of the Edge counting the money. I had 2 friends, and I said, are we anywhere near the $10,000? At that point, I was nervous, thinking, I hate to tell people, okay, we're at 500. And they said, hold on, and they're counting and counting and counting us. And they were like, we're at $10,110. Or no, they had already reached 10,000.
And they hadn't stopped counting.
They were still counting, and the party kept going. And when it was all said and done, we wrote a check through the Rainbow World Fund so the money could be marked as coming from the LGBT community. And they're headquartered right in the Castro. So that money went on a check for $18,500 to the American.
A bunch of sisters and
drag queens and singers and leathermen, cowboys. and to the American Red Cross, because
Yes.
our members who had family there said that the only organization they see helping is the Red Cross with blankets and water, which they need. So that's where we sent the money.
Yeah. In our last couple minutes, I want to talk to you about the changes you've seen in the Castro. And, you know, talking about the Edge, in a sense, is a great segue, because when you and I moved to the Castro, the Edge was the last lesbian bar in the Castro. Francine's.
Francine's, right.
I still get a kick out of seeing men in leather at the Edge, because it used to be a dyke bar.
Right. Things change.
Things change. Do you think some of the changes are good? Are they bad? What is the Castro like for you now?
Well, you know, friends like Donna Sachet help me stay on my toes and remind me that you can always lament the past, but the power's in the present moment of what you're doing today. And she and I and thousands of our closest friends are out having a good time, not just on the weekend. Almost every night of the week there's a fundraiser or benefit or a contest or something going on. So it has changed dramatically, mostly in recent years, to the real estate situation. It's just unbelievable. A one-bedroom apartment in the Castro is about $2,900 to $3,000 for a one-bedroom. So it's really changed in the demographics of the neighborhood. Plus, we have all these huge apartment buildings going up. I don't think any of them are under $500,000 to purchase one. And there'll be thousands of new residents in the upper market area, and that will make a big change as well. So that's going on, and you know, merchants change, real estate goes up, we lose some of the mom and pop shops. Sometimes when you want something mom and pop to go in, they can't afford it, and you end up with another chain store. So there's a real battle with zoning, just trying to keep the neighborhood with its roots of the LGBT community.
Well, and I mean, you know, there's certainly projects like the Rainbow Honor Walk, which I'm very familiar with, that, you know, are there to teach that this was and is a place of importance to the LGBT community. Do you think that's going to stay, though? I mean, yeah, communities change. I mean, it used to be an Irish neighborhood, then it became a gay neighborhood. Do you think it will always still be kind of the spiritual home for the LGBT community?
I think as long as there are business owners who can have LGBT shops, bars, and restaurants there, that it will maintain that, because there's no other part of the city that has that. So you maybe have 12 or 15 bars there. And believe it or not, that's kind of an anchor for the neighborhood. It draws people in, not just local people in the region, but international tourists as well. So the Castro has a reputation. It's on the tourist map. And with the big rainbow flag there, which is not going away, there's a whole restructuring of Castro Street, which is going to be beautiful. I think that it's always going to be a nexus. And because of Harvey Milk, the Milk movie, the historical significance of it, the Castro Theater's an anchor there, that whenever there's a rally or a political issue,
they'll come
that's
there.
The center.
So you're hopeful. We've been speaking with SF Pride Director, head of it, Gary, Virginia. I'm David Perry, hopeful that you'll watch 10%. Thanks very much.